Friends, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of SPTV News Live, where we keep you up to date on the latest shenanigans of the criminal cult of Scientology. As Pam says, she's eager for an update as the Church of Scientology has issues. Chow responds, "No shit, Pam. COS has so many issues they needed an entire publishing arm to handle them. And even then, Chow, it's still not working because I don't think anybody believes their bullshit." So, what are we talking about today? This is the civil lawsuit that Leah Remini filed on August 2nd, 2023 of this year, alleging fair game harassment by the cult going all the way back to 2006 up to present time. So, in 2006, Leah Remini dared ask, where is Shelley Miscavige, the missing wife of the current leader of the cult, David Miscavige? And since then, she was thrown into ethics conditions, auditing handlings, and all sorts of trauma before she finally left in 2013. In 2015, she wrote a book called Troublemaker, where the fair game activity really ramped up. And we'll cover that timeline real briefly of her speaking out. And so, August, just a couple of months ago, she filed a civil lawsuit alleging that the harassment must stop, and she's seeking civil damages, meaning in the form of money. So, unfortunately, we can't get the elf in prison yet, but that day will be coming. So, with that in mind, let's go through this. Now, we're not going to cover all of this because, just real briefly, there's a 300 plus point by point that Leah makes in 9 different sections about what she's alleging has happened, from harassment on social media to stalking, i.e. fair game activities, etc. So there's no way we can go over all of these. But the cult has fired back. The Scientology Empire Strikes Back just yesterday in the way of basically trying to gut the entire lawsuit by going almost point by point and saying, this is how she got it wrong. We're declaring free speech and this thing should be thrown out. And since they filed an anti-slap, which we covered the other day, they're saying, give us the attorney's fees back too. So let's get into this. And then we also have an update on Jane Doe number 1, which we covered the other day, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. That'll be towards the end, and that's a quick one. So Scientology moves to strike much of Leah Remini's lawsuit, hits back with their own words. So this is what the lawsuit's about. Leah Remini filed her lawsuit against the Cult of Scientology on August 2nd. Since then, she's made several more filings, updating the complaint with new allegations, asking for an injunction to stop the cult from continuing to harass her, and even asking for a new judge. What this boils down to is the cult's response essentially is this. Yes, Scientology called Leah Remini names online, but only because she called Scientology names first. Now, we've covered this in previous videos starting 2 months ago. 3 separate videos, which I'll link in the description box as always. And the first court date set for Leah Remini's lawsuit against Scientology, that was 2 months ago. And then she amended it because the very thing that she's filing for, fair game harassment, has amped up, allegedly, since then. I'm going to stop saying allegedly because this is what they engage in. So you can see here, 1 month ago, Leah Remini files amended lawsuit. Scientology harassment continues. And there's another update right here. Leah Remini's shocking sworn testimony, Scientology harassment exposed, and Mike Rinder and Claire Headley added to the amended complaint. So let's get a little bit of background on Leah Remini speaking out and why she's being attacked so heavily. And bless her, she continues to take the hits because they haven't been able to silence her yet. This is a brief background just so we don't get too lost in all these cases and we can have a little refresher course. So Scientology, there was Leah Remini's memoir, there was Scientology in the Aftermath, and then there was a Scientology Fair Game podcast and the lawsuit, which we're discussing today. So alongside the likes of Tom Cruise, Leah Remini was one of the Cult of Scientology's staunchest defenders throughout her career. That is, until she publicly broke with the organization in July 2013. The announcement pushed back into the headlines as she made the talk show rounds to explain her decision, in turn drawing a very strong response from the cult to rebuke her claims of abusive behavior In late 2015, she published her memoir, which was called Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Scientology. I love that title, by the way, because they're almost one and the same, as we've discussed in previous videos. Stand by for a drink of water. The controversial subject matter propelled the book to the top of the New York Times bestseller list and also drew the interest of television executives. In November 2016, A&E premiered Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath, which was a documentary series that featured the actor interviewing other former members of the cult. And there she is, getting an Emmy for it. Shortly before the launch of season 2 of Scientology in the Aftermath, Remini learned that her show had been nominated for 2 Emmys. And in September 2017, Scientology in the Aftermath claimed an Emmy for Outstanding Infomercial Series or Special. Informational series, my bad. Jesus. Additionally, the show had prompted an investigation into accusations of rape involving actor Danny Masterson and a potential cover-up by the church. There's a grand jury investigation that's been ongoing over multiple years now about that, by the way. After the first of a reported 4 victims revealed their story to Remini, the actor encouraged her to file a report with the Los Angeles Police Department and personally followed up with police to see how the investigation was proceeding, and Masterson was fired from the Netflix show The Ranch in December 2017 over these allegations, and he was convicted of 2 counts of rape in May 2023, and as we know, in September 7th, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 years. Remini's interviews with 2 of the alleged rape victims, finally, it's not alleged anymore, finally aired in August 2019. That's when a lot of people actually became aware of this too. Concluding the celebrated 3-season run of Scientology in the Aftermath. And then in between here and the lawsuit that we're covering today, she did Scientology Fair Game podcast with Mike Rinder. So here's what the cult has filed. Let me bring this down so you guys can actually see it. Let's get into this lawsuit. Again, we're just going to cover the high points. It's basically them saying, nanner, 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 you know, we have free speech just like you. When you go over this whole thing, I'm going to link all these documents in the description box. She, in my opinion, has been terrorized by these people on multiple levels, but we're only going to hit the high points here because, like I said, there's 300 plus points. Just the length of time that it took for the church to fill out this document must have been extraordinary. So this is what they wrote here, seeking their attorney's fees back because of the anti-SLAPP that they filed the other day. And that's what this is about, all under the anti-SLAPP. We're just using free speech and we're not stalking Leah. Leah Remini versus Church of Scientology International. There's the case number. The case type is civil unlimited. That is as opposed to criminal. So again, no handcuffs for the elf, but she could be remunerated if they're found to be guilty. And the category that it falls under is defamation, slander / libel. In addition to the stalking, Leah's claiming, and you'll see if you read over the entire document, that they've gone to town on discrediting her and trying to get her fired from jobs to pressure the companies that she worked for, whether it was the Aftermath, her game show, etc., trying to get advertisers to fall out of favor with her, etc. And they've had a lot of people on this to be able to do this to one person. So you can see here the case name is Leah Remini versus Church of Scientology International. There's the case number, and the type is a special motion to strike under CCP section 425.16, and that's the anti-SLAPP motion. And just to cover that again real quick, I mean, we covered it in the last time, but I'm no legal expert, and I'd want to know what the hell these things mean. So what we're reading out today is all under a dismissal because they're claiming free speech under the anti-SLAPP law, and that's short for strategic lawsuits against public participation. SLAPPs have become an all too common tool for intimidating and silencing criticism through expensive, baseless legal proceedings. Anti-SLAPP laws are meant to provide a remedy to SLAPP suits. What happens if a lawsuit's dismissed through anti-SLAPP proceedings? If the plaintiffs cannot meet this burden and the suit is dismissed through anti-SLAPP proceedings, many statutes allow defendants to collect attorney's fees for the plaintiff. And that's exactly what they're seeking here, as you'll see at the bottom. Just real quick, the defendant is the Cult of Scientology International. I know it says the church, but really it's not a church. And that's where all the problems began. So I just wanted to keep stressing that it's a cult. This is taking place at the Stanley Moss Courthouse. You can see here the time is 11/28/23 at 8:30 a.m. when this was filed. That was yesterday. And here's the attorney's fees that they're seeking back. How this only cost $446.96 to come up with is beyond me. That seems like a lowball figure, but there you have it. Now let's get into the legalese gobbledygook itself. I combed over all this just to try to find, like I said, the high points and the points that aren't too confusing. But just so we don't forget, it's basically all about this. Scientology called Leah Remini names, but only because she called Scientology names first, and therefore you should throw out the entire frickin' suit. It is important to name the cult's lawyers. So the attorneys for the Church of Scientology International are William H. Forman and Margaret E. Dayton. And the attorneys for RTC, which is kind of another way of saying the Church of Scientology. The cult attorneys are Robert E. Mangles, Matthew D. Hinks, and Jeffer Mangles. Again, not to be confused with Joseph Mangala, Jeffer Mangles Butler. And like I said, those are the attorneys for RTC. And then you can see here, this is the Superior Court of the State of California for the County of LA, Central District, and the plaintiff is Leah Remini. And the defendants are the ELF, the Cult of Scientology International, and RTC. And this is what they're saying about this. Defendants, Cult of Scientology International, and Religious Technology Center's special motion to strike allegations and corresponding causes of action from plaintiff's first amended complaint. There's been multiple amended complaints, but they're, like I said, they're just saying, we have free speech, go fuck yourself. This complaint was filed on August 2nd. The hearing date being yesterday, November 28th. And just to show you, we'll read this a little bit. So to all the parties and their attorneys of record, please take notice that yesterday at 8:30 a.m., defendants Cult of Scientology International and RTC, collectively known as the defendants, will and hereby do move the court for an order striking the following allegations from the first amended complaint of Remini. And then they go over all the different paragraphs. Like I told you, there's 300 points, and you can just see from the table of contents alone, they're trying to gut the entire record and get it thrown out. So let's get into some of these things about what they say from the introduction, and then we'll just hit the high points, like I said. This is some funny stuff, man. Okay. Because what they do is what they're saying that Leah and us do and other ex-Scientologists is called projection. It's exactly what they do. So when they say Leah terrorizes people and lies and all that, it's literally hearing what they do. So let's get into this. So this is what they wrote yesterday and submitted. Memorandum of Points and Authorities, Introduction. After being expelled from the Cult of Scientology over a decade ago for unethical conduct, i.e., Leah sussed it was a con, plaintiff Leah Remini made a lucrative career spewing hate and inciting violence against the Cult of Scientology. Again, remember we just said projection? There's been no more hateful, bigoted, and inspiring violence person than the founder of the cult, L. Ron Hubbard, and David Miscavige is carrying that on that tradition while saying that Leah and us are doing this. So she's inspired violence against the Cult of Scientology, its parishioners, and the ecclesiastical leader of the Scientology religion. She's done this through her autobiography, a cable television show, podcasts, and appearances on broadcast television and radio. She has used those platforms to call the church, quote, pure fucking evil, and its parishioners, sick assholes, fucking like body snatchers, and morally depleted, and even to falsely accuse the ecclesiastical elf of the religion of unidentified, quote, crimes. Yeah, David Miscavige never has done a single crime. I don't know why she would accuse him of that. I don't know why she'd say they're body snatchers and pure fucking evil, when that's totally accurate from my experience. Plaintiff candidly admits that she spends hate for cash, boasting to ABC News, I don't work for free. She admits her anti-Scientology TV show, supposedly investigative journalism, was a sham. You hear the snarkiness of this? This is undoubtedly dictated by Miscavige. Quote, listen, that's how it works, honey doll. That's how we do it. It's not reality. I plan out all these episodes and we figure them out beforehand on who's going to say what. Yet the harm and terror she has caused is all too real. Again, that's what Scientology does. They cause harm and terror, particularly to people that leave and speak out like her. Since plaintiff started her hate campaign, the Cult of Scientology, its ecclesiastical leader, clergy, and parishioners have endured more than 500 acts of hate, vandalism, incidents of harassment, and threats of violence and death. Within an hour of debut of the second season of Plaintiff's TV show, the cult received these threats and others. You're all dead. I'm going to murder all you pig cult bastards and blow up all your buildings. You're fucked. All churches are going to be gone. Every asshole Scientologist dead. Now, mind you, I just wanted to say something real quick because it came up in the interview that we talked about last night. I hope that I can say this without the algorithm going funky or anything. But I talked about how I was so angry that they took my family away. There's an unbelievable anger at realizing, at least in my case, being in for a couple decades, that I was lied to and I'm about to lose my family if I try to wake them up. And my family turned on me, as does Scientology. That created so much trauma. I did think about suiciding myself, and I did say, when I was interviewing a lady the other night, I'm surprised more people haven't blown up their buildings. Now, I don't encourage anybody to do that. I didn't do it. It was just a feeling that I had, and I wanted to express the level of anger that one can feel when they come out. You know, I just didn't see a way out, and I was just really distraught that they took my fucking family. So I'm not surprised that people say this, but they didn't act out on it. But this is what they do to people, man. What can, they make people angry. Refusing to remain silent in the face of the threats and violence plaintiff inspired, the cult fought back. It shined a light on plaintiff's ugliness, showing the world the degrading comments plaintiff has made about Scientologists and the elf. It let her supporters know that they were giving comfort to an anti-religious bigot. Again, there's no more bigoted person than the founder of the cult, L. Ron Hubbard. It detailed the hundreds of threats and crimes inspired by plaintiff's speech. And it did all of this committed to a principle. I cannot even read this without cackling. And it did all of this committed to a principle alien to the plaintiff, i.e. Leah Remini. The church always told the truth. Again, flip everything around in Scientology and you'll know what you're dealing with. Everything the cult has said about plaintiff's hated bigotry is documented, most often out of the mouth of the plaintiff herself. Now that she's on the receiving end of speech, plaintiff has filed this complaint and the attendant application for preliminary injunction to stifle all dissent. Or could it be the fact that she's been terrorized by fair game activity for 17 years? Could that have anything to do with it, Ms. Cabbage? This lawsuit is nothing but an attempt by plaintiffs to stop defendants Cult of Scientology International, CSI, and Religious Technology Center, RTC, from responding to her hateful attacks with truthful speech. Each cause of action she alleges seeks to impose liability on defendants for stating opinions about plaintiff's hateful conduct, such as the fact that she's a bigot, or of incontrovertible truth, such as that plaintiff's defended and continues to defend a man found liable for rape. There, they're referring to Paul Haggis, who was found guilty in a civil trial and had to pay $10 million. But they also were trying to use that to deflect from Danny Masterson, Scientologist in good standing, who has yet to be declared. And they don't take any responsibility for that. So again, if you flip everything on 180 degrees, you'll understand what Scientology is. What they accuse others of doing, that's exactly what they're doing, generally speaking. Indeed, in her 310 paragraph complaint, plaintiff has not identified a single statement by the cult that is neither an opinion nor true. Plaintiff's attempt to tortify a public debate that she initiated and has profited from is why California enacted its anti-SLAPP statute. Again, this is all about them claiming free speech. It's no surprise that the allegations satisfy both the first and second prong of the anti-SLAPP analysis. Plaintiff cannot deny that under prong one, the statements at issue concern a matter of public interest. Making them so has been her bread and butter for a decade. Alleged non-speech conduct that the plaintiff accurately, I would say, characterizes as surveillance, i.e. fair game tactics and intimidation tactics, is pre-litigation petitioning and thus also protected prong one conduct. As to prong 2, whether plaintiff can prevail on her claims, dozens of the allegations are barred by the applicable statutes of limitations. And as to those that are not, they're non-actionable exercises of course, free speech, such as, of course, true statement, statements of opinion, and group boycott. In addition, plaintiff cannot meet her burden to establish through admissible evidence elements of each of her claims, and so she must survive, as she must do to survive this motion. In other words, throw it out. The length of the complaint belies how little is actually there. When stripped of the allegations that depend on non-actionable statements, protected petitioning, and are outside the statute of limitations, there's virtually nothing left. Again, dismiss the whole case, and this entire thing goes into almost point by point of trying to make that case. The anti-SLAPP statute demands that this formal assault on First Amendment protected speech and conduct be stricken. And then it goes into some fake background about the cult. CSI, Church of Scientology International, is a nonprofit religious corporation, and they only became a religion because they threatened 1,100 IRS officials so badly that they then said, if you give us our tax-exempt status, we'll stop threatening you, the very thing that Leah Remini is suing for. So CSI is a nonprofit religious corporation that functions as the mother cult. Again, it's not a church. They didn't get their tax-exempt. They have a very special deal with the IRS here in the U.S., and if they weren't called a church and recognized as such, they would be in deep shit. So as the mother cult of the Scientology, quote, religion, CSI is dedicated, of course, to the advancement of the Scientology religion through the churches under its ecclesiastical dictator. The aforementioned ELF, RTC, is also a nonprofit religious corporation whose central mission is to ensure the orthodox practice of the Scientology religion worldwide. Plaintiff described herself as, quote, a former Scientologist of nearly 40 years and a 2-time Emmy Award-winning producer, etc. A model example of a Scientologist, but then plaintiff began a campaign to destroy the cult. Through an autobiography, a cable television show called The Aftermath, etc. Now, we've covered that. I showed you the timeline, and she calls them pure fucking evil, poison, fraud, criminal, etc. All accurate, extremist, manipulators, pussies, horrible, hateful, and a bunch of fucking like body snatchers. Again, I'd say absolutely accurate. And they just document, again, point by point, about all the bad things that Leah Remini's done and how she inspired people to do activities which are explained in Leah's breakdown, but they mischaracterize it, shall we say. So I'm just going to read these 2 paragraphs, and then we're going to get into the next part. The filth and threats go on and on. Plaintiff's multimedia dehumanization of the Church of Terrorists, quote, and Scientologists as, quote, morally depleted robots, again, accurate, has predictably endangered Scientologists throughout the world. To cite just a few acts of violence inspired by plaintiff's war of words against Scientology. So in December 2015, there was a post saying Leah Remini's a true inspiration. And then this was by Erin McMurtry, who drove her car through the front door of the Church of Scientology in Austin. When McMurtry was arrested and she was told no one was hurt, she replied, that's too bad. And then in April 2016, they always like to bring this one up. This is Brandon Reisdorf, and this is actually just all bullshit. So let me just show you, because the next many allegations just go over this, all the attacks that Leah Remini has done and stuff. Let me show you their own hate website, just so you can get a feel for the very shit that they're just, would take 15 or 20 minutes to read out, and it'll give you a flavor of what they're saying, and then we'll jump on to the next part. And this appertains to the allegations I was just reading you out about Brandon, about Reisdorf, and, the hammer. They blame a murder in Sydney, Australia on her, etc.
And I said, Captain, I'll double the money. And he wouldn't take it.
Breaking news coming into KXAN. A car has crashed into the Church of Scientology building. Police arrested Erin McMurtry just a few hours later.
police arrested a man last night after he threw a hammer through the front window of the Church of Scientology.
Hey, look at this kid. He's committed a hate crime.
LAPD was right there waiting for me, and I was taken into custody.
Tragic, fatal. A 24-year-old Scientologist dead.
They're accusing actress Leah Remini and her Australian co-host of inciting hatred and violence.
Just want to say something here real quick. If you're just tuning in, especially, this is a Scientology hate website. They have one on everyone that's ever been on Scientology in the aftermath and other people. And it's kind of an inside glimpse of the horrible 3-hour shows that I'd have to listen to multiple times each year for 2 decades as David Miscavige would get on stage and flash graph after graph, numbers after numbers so fast that you can't actually make sense of what's being said. What you're about to see as they just flash this bullshit here that means absolutely nothing, basically, is kind of a flavor of what the events are like. "162 bigoted articles, all sourced to Leah, the evil SP." But here's the real question. Why are the Hollywood trades writing about a religion? One, it's not a religion, and that's where your whole argument falls down. No, it's actually time to hold Scientology accountable. Pretty intense, right? Pretty dramatic. So getting back to some of the points of this suit, let us carry on. So this is going to help us understand the 9 different sections that Leah's suing on and what the cult, again, has to say about it, which, to summarize this legalese gobbledygook, is we have free speech. She's saying shit about us, so we can say shit about her. The identified paragraphs must be stricken under the anti-SLAPP statute, legal standards governing anti-SLAPP motions. Section 425.16 creates a special motion to strike, quote, a cause of action against a person arising from any act of that person in furtherance of the person's right of petition or free speech under the United States or California Constitution in connection with a public issue. And then they cite some cases here. So let's sum this up. The anti-SLAPP analysis has 2 steps. First, the moving party must show that the challenged claims arises from activity protected by Section 425.16. If the moving party meets its initial burden of showing that the claim arises from protected activity, i.e. free speech, the burden shifts to the plaintiff, in this case, Leah Remini, to demonstrate the merit of the claim by establishing a probability of success. And these are the 9 different actions, again, almost point by point, that they go over and dispute. The pertinent causes of action. So Remini incorporates the protected allegations into all 9 of her causes of action. 1, civil harassment. 2, stalking and purported violation of California Civil Code, blah, blah, blah. Number 3, intentional and international infliction of emotional distress. Number 4, interference with contractual relations. Number 5, interference with prospective economic advantage. Again, if you go through this, which I'll link in the description box, they've absolutely hammered her, and not just on Twitter, to try to decrease her livelihood, which is right out of the playbook of fair game tactics in Scientology written by the founder. Number 6 is defamation per se. Number 7 is defamation by implication. 8, false light defamation. And 9, declaratory relief. The charging allegations for each of these causes of actions expressly incorporate all prior factual allegations of the FAC necessarily included the protected conduct discussed above. Plaintiff cannot show a probability of prevailing on the merits of any of the claims based on protected activity. Therefore, all the identified allegations must be stricken. As a result, the 4th through 9th causes of action must be stricken in their entirety, and the claims in the 1st through 3rd causes of action based on the stricken allegations must be stricken. Again, they're trying to get the whole frickin' thing thrown out. So rather than go through what the cult says by point, we get a first look here at the, again, 300 plus items that Leah lists out that are damaging her livelihood, scaring the shit out of her, where she's had to get bodyguards, where she's alleging fair game, stalking, and private investigators following in the whole 9 yards. So let's go over a few of these. Again, this is what Leah filed, which the cult is trying to take apart bit by bit. Let's start with number 70, and we'll just work through some of these. So from the factual allegations and background on Leah's involvement in Scientology, point 70, which they're trying to get stricken, says, well, and this is just her stating the facts here, and they're already like, yeah, that's invalid. While Miss Remini was a Scientologist giving millions of dollars to Scientology, serving as a public face for Scientology, recruiting people individually to join Scientology, helping to move Scientologists on their bridge, and donating to outside groups at the behest of Scientology, she frequently was held up as an example of a model Scientologist and praised repeatedly for her contributions. She was awarded commendations by David Miscavige, Tom Cruise, and by the very people who later attacked her in Scientology-produced videos, despite repeatedly having been asked to appear in Scientology videos herself. As soon as she left and spoke out against Scientology, she was labeled by the organization she supported financially as an untrustworthy apostate, as has been the case for staff members, Sea Org members, and other Scientologists who have left Scientology or who have spoken out, and for non-Scientologists who have made a joke about Scientology, reported crimes against or advocated for victims of Scientology. Again, I can attest that all that was true. Once I woke up from the spell, everything immediately changed from just because I could see through the illusion, where now all of a sudden, according to my parents in the cult, I was the most evil person on the planet. From the allegations about fair game harassment, these are all things that Scientology are disputing, but these are Leah's words from her complaint. So 90 defendants enlisted dozens of current and former Scientologists to record videotape messages in Scientology production studios to make disparaging and false claims against Miss Remini, including false and defamatory statements that she said was abusive to her mother and daughter, that said that she was abusive to her mother and daughter, and that she's a racist. These videos continue to be posted at Leah Remini, The Facts. These are their hate websites. 91, to discredit Miss Remini's truthful public comments regarding defendants, the cult. The cult also used and manipulated Miss Remini's estranged and now deceased father, George Remini, and his third wife, Dana, to make false statements about her, including that she's a liar, that she only wanted her name in the news, that she would not help to pay for his cancer treatments, that she turned her back on her half-sister when she was in the hospital, that she ransacked her dying grandmother's apartment, and that she had no morals. Again, those that are following the Scientology story know the stories behind these allegations, and they're nothing like what they make them sound. Her family also turned on her, and they expect her to do all these things for her now. Her family became very vicious as soon as she woke up, or let's say relatives, because most of her family, her real family, actually left with her. These false statements were posted to websites created and controlled by defendants and continued to be promoted or reposted by Scientology. 94, while Ms. Remini was in New York in 2015 to promote her book, she became aware that she's being followed by private investigators hired by defendants. This is standard practice. And by the way, this is how they kind of get away with it legally. It's not technically illegal, I don't believe, to actually follow someone and to have private investigators. But where do you draw the line between intimidating the shit out of someone by doing that all the time? It would have a tendency to make you paranoid, don't you think? This is how Scientology really walks the fine line, without necessarily doing things that are criminal. But since they're protected by their religious status, they can kind of get away with these things. These private investigators followed Miss Remini to and from her hotel and to and from all interviews and media appearances. Defendants hired surveillance. Again, remember Marty Rathbun and others being surveilled? I think he had and Mike Rinder, didn't he have a fucking camera put in the little bird cage or whatever outside? And then people will rent out houses across the street from the high profile defectors. They'll have people befriend them over years just to get information. But apparently this is all legal. Defendants hired surveillance consistent with Scientology directives. Again, it's written into the policy to do these things. You want to bury the person, so they'll stop speaking out. That's the end product of all this. Was so intimidating that it made Miss Remini fear for her physical safety. As a result, she, for the first time in her life, despite being a public figure, was forced to hire private bodyguards to ensure her safety during her book tour. 95. In addition to physically following and harassing Miss Remini during her book tour, defendants sent disparaging and threatening letters to third parties who were promoting Remini's book. And there's all these people listed that were fucking up her income. 97, from 2016 through 2019, Remini created, produced, and hosted the show Scientology in the Aftermath. And then it talks here about how all sorts of letters were sent. They would protest outside. They would try to get advertisers pulled, etc. So let's go on to, well, I guess we can cover a couple more of these because I want to show you some of the actual fair gaming activities in more detail. So let me skip some of these. This is her, hitting her on every level to try to hit her where it hurts, money-wise, because that would prevent her from actually speaking out. 100, in addition to these hundreds of letters, Scientologists, at the urging of defendants and in accordance with their suppressive person, OSA network directives, HCOBs, HCOPLs, and fair game policies. By the way, this stands for Hubbard Communication Office Bulletins. These are known as red on whites, where you follow the tech of Scientology. And then HCOPL is Hubbard Communication Office Policy Letters. These are the policies written in stone, also known as green on white, that you are to follow. So it's literally scripture to destroy the person utterly, so they can't continue speaking out. So OSA created a front group called the Interfaith Alliance to create the appearance that religious leaders found the series. One of the religious found the, let me read that again. So OSA created a front group called the Interfaith Alliance to create the appearance that religious leaders found the series one of religious bigotry. I just wanted to say something about that real quick. So I've been meaning to do a video on Grant Cardone because it appertains to this. Where just recently, we'll wait for the video because it's outrageous. But Grant, is a major Scientologist. He's very outspoken about it, and he's a complete snake oil salesman in the real estate business. And he said in a recent interview why are you attacking, he won this lawsuit, and I say won in quotes because we'll go over it. He spent $1 million to win a $10,000 lawsuit that someone was suing him for. But he, like every Scientologist, says, why are you attacking us? We're a religion. What they do is they try to get other people in religion and snowball them to say, hey, we're a religion too. Can we combine forces with you? Because you get attacked too, right? Catholic Church, you get attacked too, right? Judaism or whatever, right? So they try to safe point themselves with other religious leaders, many of which are actually Scientologists in disguise, believe it or not, to make this coordinated attack where anytime you go after them, and this is exactly what Grant Cardone, says in the interview that I'll show you that we're going to go over later, they use this as a way to deflect attention. And again, they're not a religion. They're a destructive cult. I just wanted to point that out because you're going to see certain themes as we continue to cover these lawsuits as to what they have a tendency to always say to deflect. And if the courts don't know what's going on, they can actually buy into this bullshit. So I'll just reread this so that will make sense. So OSA created a front group called the Interfaith Alliance to create the appearance that religious leaders found the series one of religious bigotry. Again, it's not just Scientology that's saying Leah's show, The Aftermath, is bigotry. It's also being said by the Catholics and everybody else we co-opted. This group, none of whom were actual clergy, and all of whom, were actually Scientologists, stood outside of the A&E corporate offices and picketed demanding cancellation of Miss Remini's documentary series, falsely claiming that she incited bigotry and hate crimes, including but not limited to murder. Yes, they actually accuse her of murder. And by the way, if you're a Hollywood person, even though you might be on the side of Leah and you've already gone through X amount of problems to get, the aftermath on air or iHeartRadio that since backed out, and she had to deal with and hosted the Fair Game podcast with Mike Rinder. This does have an effect on people that don't have the maybe fortitude that Leah and others have. And so if you see a group picketing outside of A&E or iHeart, and you have constant hundreds and hundreds of letters sent talking about how bad Leah is and accusing her literally of murder, that does have an effect on getting them to drop you. And she's lost many contacts because of that very activity. So it's corny. And it seems like who would listen to Scientology, but it does work on Hollywood people and lots of people. Number 101 defendants and defendants operatives also engage in efforts to harass and threaten anyone involved in the aftermath, most notably ex-Scientologists who were whistleblowers and survivors of Scientology abuse who agreed to be interviewed for the documentary series. Again, every one of these people got a website, and you better damn well believe that the harassment happened in the heat of this, when this was being aired to every one of these people. Their lives changed when they finished, when those shows were aired. 102 in 2017, defendants continued their campaign to harass and discredit Miss Remini, and then she appeared on Conan O'Brien, etc. Let's get to some of the social media attacks. We're almost done here. But again, there's way, way too many, and it's kind of an explosive document. These 300 points really make it, I didn't actually realize how much, I didn't know the specifics of what they've done to Leah, but it removed all doubt that, damn, man, thanks for speaking out. I don't know if I could handle all this bullshit because they're really going after her, allegedly. These are just some of the social media attacks against Miss Remini, and this is her speaking in her complaint. This is point number 117. Again, all of these, Scientology and their recent anti-slap filed the other day is taking issue and trying to get all of these thrown out as false. 117, in addition to not necessarily false, but they're claiming free speech so they can say whatever they want. So therefore, Leah saying this, it's just, it's not anything we've done. It's a battle of free speech. 117, in addition to physical stalking and harassment from 2013 to the present day, defendants have implemented a mass coordinated social media effort against Miss Remini to spread false and malicious information about her through hundreds of Scientology-run websites and social media accounts. And they do have hundreds. And that's what they're, they bought the KCET studios right in the heart of Hollywood here. And they put out not only their unwatchable bullshit series, but this is what they spend their time doing, defending the cult through Hollywood, quote unquote, propaganda in their own studios. 118, hundreds of websites and social media accounts were created by defendants and or those working at the direction of defendants to harass, embarrass, shame, and defame Miss Remini. Each website was more explicit and offensive than the last, containing attack on Miss Remini's character, her work, her family, her daughter, and every facet of her life. These hundreds of websites are part of a larger group of websites against enemies of Scientology, which include over 5,000 separate domains and include the same coordinated messaging dictated by OSA. Okay, then they go into Stand, which is their bullshit thing that they use to spread hate. Here's some of the things they say. These are like the headlines. Are Leah Remini and A&E responsible for the wave of violence against Jehovah's Witnesses kingdom halls? Again, they're trying to pull in, that's actually another destructive cult, but let's call it a religion. They're trying to pull in another religion just because Leah Remini simply did one episode exposing another destructive cult, which is a great episode, by the way, on the JWs. So she must be responsible, therefore, for this alleged wave of violence against the JWs. Leah Remini is a disgrace to women of valor everywhere. As the world remembers the Holocaust, bigot Leah Remini inspires praise of Hitler. Again, project much? And then, let's see, they created some more bullshit on Leah Remini, the Facts website. They have tons of these freaking websites. Another headline, Leah Remini to dying sister, quote, get charity care. with headline reading, Remini's former stepmother lets loose on how Leah, quote, made a complete mockery and disaster of sibling Stephanie Remini's death. And just to show you some of the bullshit that they put about all the alleged evil crap that Leah's been doing to her family, let's go back to the cult video, and I'll just show you a bit of that because that will save us having to read large quantities of this as we wrap up. So where the hell is that video? Stand by, please. Do I still have it? Come on. Okay, here it is. Let's take this from the beginning. Stand by.
Okay, are we ready?
Okay, so this is their hate website, and the allegations that I just read about how she, supposedly hates certain members of her family, blah, blah, blah. This will cover 20 or so of those points that they're wishing to have stricken.
Okay, are we ready? Shut the fuck up, fucking religion. I'm gonna tell you this, you can go fuck yourself. A bunch of fucking body snatchers. Nazi youth. What the fuck you say? If you don't fucking like it, get the fuck out.
Leah, I want to turn to you. How much vetting is done of the people who are going to tell their stories on your show? Is that something, do you have people
You can totally see the editing. This is all taken out of context. And they just, at the beginning, you heard everything that we read that they started out this complaint with, right? That Leah says that, they're fucking body snatchers, they're evil and all that. They literally just clip those together that you just heard. And you can see here how edited this is too. They take everything out of context to try to make her look inaccurate or evil.
Leah, I want to turn to you. How much vetting is done of the people who are going to tell their stories on your show? Is that something, do you have people who have to sort of make them prove their stories, or do you?
Well, what do you want to do? Prove it to me? So there is no vetting. I go take their word for it.
And legal will let you get away with that?
Well, they have to, because they're my people.
Yeah.
This was a great show, by the way. How many of you guys actually saw this thing? I swear I cried every episode. I was deprogramming. I was like in year 8 or 9 of deprogramming. I still had a ways to go. And this show really, really helped me heal. And it also got such exposure. I didn't have to explain to my friends what my trauma was. I would always talk to them about Scientology. And so many of them saw this show and they're like, oh, I understand what you're talking about. So many people have come forward of ex-Scientologists. So many people have left just because of this one show. It's a great show if you haven't seen it. Here you see they're kind of claiming free speech, right? Then the Hollywood Reporter and Leah tried to take it down. I doubt that. Or maybe they did. I mean, this is defamatory shit. I don't know how they get away with it, but I'm no expert. They put some pretty defamatory, I would say highly inaccurate and twisted information on their websites. So good for her for suing for slander. And if this works, this might set a precedent and all their other websites could be taken down because they're pretty bad, man. I'm just waiting for mine, goddammit. What the fuck? This is one of the police detectives trying to help her look into Shelley Miscavige, and again, you're going to see how they spin it.
He came to my house to take down the information for the missing person report. Kevin went directly to the head of his division and asked if he could handle my missing person report himself.
wonder if the detectives closed the investigation, not least because they had the LAPD completely safe pointed and in their pocket. Because they did respond very, very quickly.
She goes, I know that. I knew she wasn't missing. And that was cool with her. In other words, she knew it was a scam from the beginning.
In Scientology's defense, who knows if she's missing or not? We believe her to be at CST, and if she was, she might be in a state where she definitely doesn't like David Miscavige. But like any program Scientologist, she wouldn't necessarily want to leave. But I believe Leah's trying to do a welfare check. And when it comes to this, she never got satisfied, never got to see her, and it's all kind of shady. We would like to know if she's okay. Again, you're getting a flavor of Scientology events. The events are even more outrageous than this, but it's real quick flashing. You can't really see what's going on, and it all tries to bamboozle you with statistics, graphs, etc.
That's what she does.
Here's the family allegations that we covered. This guy is a complete scumbag, in my opinion, George Remini. They just make up bullshit and make it sound like Leah won't help us, and we're such good people.
Yeah, she earns a living making up lies, talking about people that she doesn't know, because she's a liar. She just wants to make things up, just to sell time on TV.
They say she has a rap sheet. And that's what we just covered earlier. So getting back to this, to summarize Leah's lawsuit and these final points, again, link in the description box to read all the harassment she's allegedly experienced, and it's a ton. So point 172, which Scientology wishes to also have stricken. Since the day Miss Remini left Scientology, defendants have stalked Miss Remini, harassed Miss Remini, disseminated hateful, false, and defamatory information about her, and done everything in their power to interfere with any and every business relationship in an effort to prevent her disclosing what goes on inside Scientology. Exactly. Hit her where it hurts, drain her of financial resources, intimidate the crap out of the people she works for, the advertising departments, etc., so she has no money to fight Scientology. And the end product that OSA wants is a critic that no longer speaks. This is from a section on activity after the lawsuit was filed, 177, which they also wish to have stricken. It said, an official statement issued by Scientology after the lawsuit asserted that Ms. Remini's statements had, quote, generated threats of and actual violence against the cult and its members, as evidenced by multiple criminal convictions of individuals poisoned by Remini's propaganda, and suggested that she consider emigrating to Russia. 178, in the same vein, this tweet was posted on a Scientology account on August 2nd, the day after she filed this frickin' complaint. This is one of their bullshit accounts. Of course, they have the check mark. They probably bought their subscribers. This is called the Expose or Expose Network. Leah Remini has incited over 600 individual incidents against Scientology, including specific threats to assassinate the leader of the religion, acts of criminal assault, vandalism, arson, bomb threats, and other violence. Again, I'm no lawyer, but I don't know how, without evidence, they can say that she's responsible for 600 individual incidents that they just mentioned. And this is what they splash all over Twitter and other social media accounts. This is a sample of it. Again, the Expose Network or Expose Network, who brought a convicted felon who had vandalized the Cult of Scientology's U.S. headquarters and threatened to murder its leader onto her show to praise his criminal, and I imagine that would say activities. I believe they were referring to the aforementioned Mr. Reisdorf, but he was suffering an illness at the time, and it's explained in Leah's lawsuit what that's all about, and it's not the way that Scientology frames it, even slightly. From count 1 of the causes of action, civil harassment, 227, again, the cult wishes to have this stricken. Defendant's course of conduct includes, but is not limited to, following, surveilling, and stalking plaintiff, again, per policy, literally inculcated and burned into Scientologist's brain. sending Scientology operatives to break into Miss Remini's gated community, stealing her personal residential mail, vandalizing her mailbox, planting and or attempting to plant spyware in close proximity to her home. Again, that's standard procedure for them. Just look at past critics. Sending harassing correspondence to plaintiff and to others, including business associates and sponsors regarding the plaintiff, and creating a social media smear campaign against plaintiff that includes false and malicious accusations made against Miss Remini and at times her family, as defendant's pattern of conduct was defamatory and conducted with the intent to harass. You damn right it was. It was criminal in nature, not protected by the veil of religious practice. Well said, man. Preach it. 231, some examples of defendant's harassment as described above include A, being physically harassed and surveilled by private investigators, private citizens, and OSA members of Scientology at the behest of defendants, most likely David Miscavige at the top, through a series of private investigators and sleuths that can't be tracked back to Scientology through many layers of buffering. B, defendants directing and coordinating an extensive and decade-long social media campaign against Miss Remini via hundreds of Scientology-run and directed Twitter accounts and websites by means of false pretenses, misrepresentations, and lies. And C, using social media and other means to send hundreds of letters to Miss Remini's business associates and advertisers, threatening these individuals and entities to cease their affiliation with Miss Remini based on lies and misinformation. And this just goes on and on and on. Stalking, being surveilled by private investigators, using OSA members to harass her, etc., etc. And then there's 9 counts, like I said. Count 4, tortious, I don't know how to pronounce that, tortious, interference with contractual relationships. This goes into how they ruined her business relationships, and it just goes on and on and on. There's one other thing that I wanted to share with you, my friends, before we roll out of here. This is an update on the Jane Doe versus alleged Sea Org groomer Gavin Potter. And I'll just show you real quickly where we covered this, and then I'll give you an update on that, because there was someone in the courtroom yesterday and Scientology won a small battle. But this is a fight that's going to have many battles. So it's not a huge win by them, but it just shows you how they're going to try to force this into their bullshit religious arbitration. So we covered it at the very end of this video because there was an update, and then there was someone going to the courthouse yesterday to find the results of that. And that has to do, real briefly, I'll link all these in the description box, these videos and everything, so you can keep track of the individual lawsuits. But it has to do with this one right here. Let me find it. Jane Doe 1's lawsuit under fire. Scientology attempts their bullshit religious arbitration strategy. So that's from last month. And here's the update that will bring you up to speed on that. And then we'll roll out of here. If you have any questions, please leave them in the description box. I'll throw the little tag here. Please throw out question marks there if you have any questions. And then we will see you shortly, because we're doing something else, a Q&A in about an hour and a half. Okay, so let me make sure this is up. So judge puts hold on woman's, that would be Jane Doe 1's, sex abuse claims pertaining to the bullshit religious arbitration that Scientology is trying to force this into, and there's going to be a hearing on that. And this is an update today, October 29th. So a judge has put a temporary hold on Jane Doe 1's lawsuit against the Cult of Scientology International, in which the self-professed former friend of the late Lisa Marie Presley alleges she was forced into marriage as a minor and sexually abused by her then husband before and after they were wed. And this is the aforementioned Gavin Potter, who we've done quite a few videos on, and we'll probably see his day in court if everything goes according to plan. During a Friday hearing, the LA Superior Court judge granted a request by the cult attorneys for a stay of plaintiff Jane Doe's case against the cult, the elf David Miscavige, and RTC, pending his ruling on another defense motion to compel the bullshit internal church religious arbitration of the woman's claims. Orwellian translation, let's get it out of the real court where justice can be served. Give it to the world within a world law of Scientology, where she has no chance of winning and prevailing, and let us handle it, judge. This is a cult matter, damn it. The RTC was founded in 1982 by the cult to control and oversee the use of all Scientology trademarks and symbols, as well as Scientology and Dianetics text. Quote, the court hereby stays the case in its entirety. A minute order written by the judge's clerk stated, a hearing on the arbitration demand is scheduled February 16th. So again, as we talked about in the previous video on this, they do everything they can to delay, to put pressure on the plaintiff, to get it thrown out with anti-SLAPP measures and such, anything they can do to even get this from coming to court in the first place. Because this was going to be heard in November, I believe. So they pushed it back to February 16th to see if they can get this whole thing thrown out and thrown into the aforementioned religious arbitration. This is a main reason why they need to get their tax exempt status taken away, particularly here in the US, because they won't have religious arbitration then. In the court papers, Scientology attorneys maintain that Doe's own writings show she loved and, quote, enthusiastically married her husband, and that she did not make claims of non-consensual sex against him until she filed her lawsuit. By the way, Jane Doe number 1 was one of the victims in the Danny Masterson rape trial. She was one that was raped by Danny, and apparently she was sexually assaulted by Gavin too. So you can see what goes on in the cult and how much is coming to light and how much cover-ups they've been doing and how they do it. Doe was 27 when in 2002 she signed an agreement stating that any dispute she may have with the cult organization was, of course, subject to binding religious arbitration, the church lawyers further maintain in the court papers. Again, we've gone over in detail how she's already disputed this. So I don't think that they're going to win this, but they're having a trial date in February to see if they can do this. Again, link in the description box for those videos that go into more detail on her response, Jane Doe 1's response. In her suit filed last December 29th, Doe says she was a Scientology member from birth and that she was recruited in 1989 at age 14 into the Faith C organization. That's where you sign a billion-year contract, which is responsible for advancing the faith's religious or research and operations. A C organization recruiter 10 years older than Doe, that would be Gavin Potter, supervised her and allegedly sexually assaulted her repeatedly while she was still a minor, the suit states. Joe was devastated by the alleged abuses, but Scientology policies forbade her from going to the police, the suit alleges. Doe and her supervisor were reprimanded by the cult and told to either marry or be sent to the cult's labor camp as punishment, according to Doe's suit, which further states she and the man were wed in, of course, Las Vegas when she was just 17 years old. Nothing sus going on there. After the alleged forced marriage, Doe was coerced and compelled to have repeated sexual intercourse with the man, became pregnant at 19, and divorced her husband in 1997, the suit states. In 2002, Doe, along with their 7-year-old daughter, accompanied her good friend and fellow Scientologist Lisa Marie Presley, again, this is all covered in detail in the previous video on this, to Flag, a spiritual, that's their headquarters basically in Clearwater, Florida, and to Disney World for a birthday celebration, the suit states. Flag is Scientology's primary training center, and visits to it usually required both advance permission as well as the transfer of auditing files from the cult member's home base, Los Angeles in Doe's case, so that the visitor can partake in Flag activities. Because Lisa, okay, we've already covered all this. I don't know if I want to go over all this. Let me just hit the high points. Because Lisa Marie was a celebrity, the Flag visitation requirements were overlooked by her. And initially for me, Doe says, however, after she'd been at Flag for a few weeks, she was told that she had to sign this agreement. But again, we covered in the previous video, it wasn't signed by the other person, so that alone makes it not valid. And then also the dates don't add up too. Again, there's too much to cover on this. You have to check out the other video on it, please. Doe further states she did not know that a Flag agreement she felt coerced to sign contained an alleged arbitration agreement. Quote, it's the policy of Scientology to force signatures on documents without review by the signer, much less a lawyer. Absolutely true. Again, covered in the previous video. I knew review was not allowed because I had been forced to sign documents previously before I was allowed to read them. So that's the update on Jane Doe there at the end. That's, like I said, the Scientology Empire striking back full force yesterday with what we just read out. Link in the description box if you want to go through the documents, but they are kind of mind-blowing. Check real quick if you guys have any questions before we roll out of here. If you'd like to join us at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to do a Q&A. That's where we hang out at the end of the week every Sunday night, and you can ask any questions you like, and we'll just hang out. It's kind of like a party game. Obi, what's going down? If it hurts your feelings not to have a hate site, I can make one for you. Thank you, bro. I can just copy and paste the shit one for one who is sites, add your name, and maybe claim you abandoned crippled triplets. Not a bad idea, my man, since mine might be coming sooner rather than later. Who knows? Who cares? If you could also get the domain name, my name is Doug Scott Kramer. So they would pick Douglas Scott Kramer, Doug Kramer, and all sorts of variations. I don't know how much they cost, but as many websites as you can create under those domain names before they get them, that will cock block them for creating theirs. Let me know what you think. That's very funny, my man. I appreciate you offering to do that. I assume you're not serious, but if you go with that, yeah, the triplets thing will definitely work. That's believable. Star, how are you, man? Have you been fair game, Doug? I talked about this multiple times before. I can't prove that it's Scientology. I've had this YouTube channel taken down 3 times. We had 54,900 subscribers. When they took it, I don't know who they is, when it was taken down in January 2023, and then I've had to rebuild from there. I have my car broken into and my license plate stolen 2 weeks after I started speaking out. I had... by the way, oh shit, I forgot to cover one of the parts here that would have actually helped to answer this. If you guys want to look through those documents, they mention Paul Haggis. It's too complex to get into, but I wanted to say something on that. When I first started speaking out, it was June 2020. We were locked in our houses from the pandemic, and I just spontaneously decided to talk out about this. And when these incidents started happening, I called Paul Haggis, who since, has to pay a $10 million fine for sexually assaulting a woman. That upheld in the court. That was one of the things that I was trying to say earlier, that they tried to pin on Leah Remini. Hey, how can you support Paul? Just because someone leaves the cult doesn't mean we're angels, and it doesn't mean we necessarily change, and it doesn't mean we're suddenly good guys. Paul was helpful in telling me what to expect, and some of the things that he said was going to happen. He said I should get a security camera, etc. They did happen. Those are just a few of them, but I can't pin it on Scientology, so I don't know if I've been fair gamed or not. I'm sure they watch the channel. I'm sure that they probably try to take it down. I mean, I don't know if it was them or not, but this is like channel 3 or 4. Not having a voice, that part pisses me off the most. Everything else I can handle. And I just wanted to say something about Paul too, because I remember talking to him. He, took time out of his day right when he was, really dealing with this and under a lot of pressure. And he was a nice guy, and he really gave me some good pointers. At the same time, a couple months later, I did see Leah siding with him, and I was going, I don't think you should do that. I actually think he's guilty. So they're using that, by the way, while defending Danny Masterson, to say, well, look, Leah does it too. Again, this whole lawsuit is about freedom of speech. I think Leah does have a case. Again, I'm no lawyer. I only play one on YouTube, that the harassment needs to end, and that she has, maybe they'll say, yeah, well, it's not all accurate, but she can say what she wants. But I hope she gets them on the stalking, because something needs to be done about their policies where, someone like me can leave and speak out freely and not have to worry if their fucking car is going to get broken down or their channel is going to get taken down or, whatever. Right. So, and the point about Paul, I just wanted to say, this is why I don't kind of belong to the clique or whatever. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but not everybody's an angel just because they survive Scientology and get out. Paul, was convicted of that, and Leah did align herself with that. And you have to be careful, because not that it means anything, but the cult can use that against you, your connections that you align with. So you have to take caution in who you kind of validate in this community too. It's a great question, but There's even more to say on that, my friend. We've covered it in previous videos, but I do feel like I've been fair game, but it's impossible to prove. Another advantage that the cult has and how they can possibly get moles in and stuff is that we don't know who hides behind the monikers of the handles. So you never know who someone's account is. And the very fact that they can see us, but we can't see them because everybody can hide on YouTube and in the comments, that's also been challenging. But that's another story for another time. Maybe we'll talk about that later tonight. Just going through to see if you guys have any more questions. Way too many to scroll through. I'm sorry if I missed them, but like I said, we're doing a Q&A shortly. And if you want to answer any questions that we didn't cover, be more than happy to hang out with you guys and answer them over there. And what outro should we go with? How about the little boxes theme? This not only describes Scientology, but the world that we live in my opinion, because it's just a microcosm of the macrocosm. So here's the jackass himself that started all this, trying to sell you the bridge to total freedom.
Have the idea of a bridge across the chasm. Now that is an old mystic idea that there was a chasm. There was a chasm between this existence, where we are now, and a higher plateau of existence. And that many people trying to make it fell into the abyss.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university where they were put in boxes, and they came out all the same. And there's doctors and lawyers and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry, and they all have pretty children, and the children go to school, and the children go to summer camp.